Hello, everyone, and welcome to Managing the Chaos, Tips and Tricks for Staying Organized with CF. It's Brittany Bates, and I'm a mother with 2 sons with CF. My husband and I are heavily active with our chapter and all things advocacy. We're also extremely particular with how we manage our kids' medication schedule and other necessary things that come along with managing the chaos that is CF. I'll be moderating this session today, and we'll be introducing our other speakers in just a moment. But before I do, I wanted to provide you housekeeping items. The session is being recorded and will be available to all registrants after the event on the CF Foundation YouTube channel. You'll also be notified by email when the session recordings are available. Under the Stage tab on the right side of your screen, you'll notice the chat for everyone who is in this session. If you're in the event tab, that's for the full event, not this specific session. We will be taking audience questions during this session. We encourage you to submit your questions at any time in the chat box. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. This panel discussion is not intended to be a substitute for advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. Do not make any changes to your own treatment plan without first consulting your care team. If you have any technology problems during the session, please visit the help desk located in the expo booth area. With that, we're going to go ahead and dive into the session. You've already met me, but let me introduce our panelists. First up, we have Lynda Griffin.
Hi, thank you, Brittany. As Brittany said, my name is Lynda Griffin, and I and my husband have 2 sons. My oldest son is 19 years old and a sophomore in college, and my youngest son is 16 years old and is a junior in high school. My youngest son is my son that has CF. I love being involved in the CF community. I serve on the Compass Advisory Board and the Access Steering Committee, as well as FamilyCon and other events like this, and some local events. I really love the work. It's super rewarding. What's kind of interesting is that I started to work with the CF Foundation at the local chapter level while I was pregnant with my youngest son, and before I even knew he may have CF. So I guess it was fate. And the reason this session spoke to me was because in the beginning when my son was newly diagnosed, and of course at other times because of different situations, taking care of a child with CF can be chaotic. And if just one person can gain something about what I've learned along the way, then I'm happy to share my experience. So I'm really happy to be here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to have you. In addition, we have Jeremy Lane.
Hi, thanks, Brittany. My name is Jeremy Lane, and I'm a single father of 4 kids under 11. 2 of my kids have CF, the oldest and the youngest. And I was interested in sharing today because the last several years I've been living in a state with no family. So I had to learn a lot in the way of keeping things organized and helping things flow on a day-to-day basis. And I'm excited to share some of that stuff that I learned today.
Well, thanks, Jeremy. We're glad to have you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we know that managing school-age kids with CF can take a lot of organization, and there are a few areas on this subject we'd like to touch on. So I'm going to start with Lynda. I know you have significant experience with 504s and IEPs. Explain what those are and your organizational process in preparing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you on here that don't have school-age children yet, or don't know much about a 504 plan or an IEP, it's basically an accommodation for your child in the classroom and for testing. So what's the difference between a 504 plan and an IEP? An IEP is an individual education plan. So a 504 plan is guided by the ADA, the American Disability Act, and an IEP is guided by IDEA, which is Individuals with Disability Educations Act. So basically a 504 plan provides accommodations for the classroom and for testing. And an IEP provides modifications of curriculum, specialized instruction, as well as the classroom and testing accommodations. But it's based more, the IEP is based more like on a learning disability, which your child may also have. But an IEP would cover both in that case, whereas a 504 plan just accommodates the classroom and testing in regards to your child's specific condition. So if your child has CF, they would qualify automatically for a 504 plan just due to their diagnosis. And your social worker or someone on your care team can actually prepare a letter from your child's doctor or from the team regarding your child's diagnosis, which would help explain some of the accommodations for your child and what their needs will be in the classroom and for testing. And that you would need that to have the conversation get started and for a 504 plan to be able to put in place in the public school. So for example, my son has a 504 plan. He used to have an IEP plan or an IEP, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But his accommodations, for example, would be access to the bathroom at any times during class. You can talk to your teacher or your child's teacher about how that would work. It may be that they have a little pass that gives them access to leave at any time, so they're not disrespecting the class rules, etc. Access to the school nurse whenever needed. So there's not a question that you can go see the nurse if they're not feeling well. Taking breaks within the classroom, eating snacks, having a drink available at the desk at all times. A lot of our kids need to have good hydration, especially if they're on some medication. Another thing you can ask for on the 504 plan is, or this is something that it can be put in place. If your child is out sick, and a lot of us deal with that, they can have double time to turn in assignments for homework. So if your child is out for 2 days, then they would have 4 days to return to work, whereas most kids would only have the 2 replacement days. So that's important, especially for CF kids, because it takes them a little longer to recover, or they've been out for a while and they need some more time, and they may not be feeling 100% even still going back to school. Just takes that longer, or they might be on some antibiotics that's taking them a little while to recover. Another accommodation you can ask for is reduced homework. So if you specifically have additional treatments that need to be done, or it's just a lot to get everything done, you can ask for things like, say the math problems, there's 1 through 20 that the kids need to get done that day. You can ask for a reduction of, can they do half of that? Or can they do 3/4 of that? So like one night they'll do all the even numbers, another night they'll do all the odd, whatever that might look like, but just to reduce the workload. Another accommodation that we have is test corrections. Sometimes when the kids start a test in class and they suddenly don't feel well, or their stomach hurts, or they can't finish the test, they shouldn't be penalized for not being able to complete the test because they weren't feeling well. So you can ask for the test corrections to be done. It may need to be done after class or during lunch, and the teachers usually will work with them. But to note that they have pain or discomfort, obviously they would have an opportunity to retest again. Another accommodation, is extra time for testing. So extended time, it might be time and a half, it might be even up to twice as much time, depending on what the 504 coordinator will work with you. My son did have an IEP at one point, but again, because it's mainly based on the educational part or disability, this was based because he was in and out of the hospital quite a lot for a few months and wasn't going to be in the classroom. And so the accommodations were different because they were educational based, so he could get that covered. So what I recommend in regards to this for keeping organized and staying on top of a 504 plan that you really do need for your child, it's more, if they don't need it now, they may need it. And so to have it in place, it's just, to have all those options available for them. What I recommend is contacting the school before the school year starts and try to set up the first appointment before the classes start. There's generally a 504 coordinator at each public school and an IEP staffing specialist at each public school. Private schools are a little different. They do not have to accommodate, but most of them will work with the family. So you just may have to have a separate meeting with the principal, and then they'll figure out how to work with you. When The meeting takes place to discuss the child's needs specific to CF. In attendance would be you, the child's school counselor, a 504 coordinator, or an IEP staffing specialist. And you can also bring anybody that is a support person for you. This could be the social worker or somebody at your CF clinic. It could be your spouse, it could be a family member, or it could even be a friend. You have the right to bring somebody along with you that will help support you or deliver the message clearly about what the needs are for your child. When the child is older, like in middle school and high school, you can choose if they want to be part of the meeting. They certainly can be. Sometimes it's a little stressful for kids. I know my kid, he just would rather not attend. And sometimes he says, I don't need all that. But he certainly does. You know, he certainly needs those. And he needs them at times he doesn't remember when he, will need it. I will say in avoidance to waste time, I would make sure that you have clear communication that you want all of these people present in the very first meeting, because it can delay issues and you may have to reschedule. So to avoid time out of work, we all, if you're a working parent, we all have to take time away or take away time from our families. It can be another thing to schedule. So it would be good to ask for those people to be in the meeting in the beginning. Another thing we've done is written out a list of my child's daily schedule to show a reference of how much work they have to do just to stay healthy. And it gives a better understanding of your child's day. So some of the things I might put on there are before school treatments and the length it takes for them to take that treatment before even they start getting ready for school. After school treatments, sports if they participate, the amount of time that they need for homework, dinner, showers, baths, and treatments sometimes before bed. So just so the team has a clear understanding of, CF is such an invisible disease to some, it's just good to have that schedule to be able to hand over to them so they can understand. Another note is you can always ask to update your child's 504 plan. So if something's not working, come back to the table, talk to them about what you can do to help them, be successful. And the accommodations are just to level up what your child is going through is more medical and related, and they may be in discomfort. So it just gives them a chance to have the same level as any other child. But putting these accommodations in place early in your child's life can really show them how they can advocate also for themselves as they get older, because a 504 plan will go through elementary school, middle school, high school, and even into college. And it's a legal document. So it's important that you get in the things that you need early on so that you can continue that without having to fight for those things consistently. But the main takeaway I would say is to schedule these before the school year starts and not in the middle of the school year. And they do renew every year at the same date. So that's what I have on 504 and IEP. So if you have any questions, we'll take them later on at the end. Back to you, Brittany.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of great information, just because my 504 meeting for my son is next week.
Call me, we'll talk.
Absolutely. So we want to hear from Jeremy and see how he manages getting his kids ready for school.
So I'm sure most of you with kids that are school age know how difficult it is to get them to school, much less having all of the medical routines that you have to do every morning. So for me, getting ready for school in the morning has been a work in progress for years to make things run as smooth as possible. The kids have to be at school, I think, around 7:45 each morning. So we live 35 minutes or so away from school. So you can imagine that it makes getting all their medications and routines done quite the challenge. The biggest part of getting ready each morning for me has been having a system for all the medication and the equipment. So I like to have everything set up in whatever way that it's going to require the least amount of work, because that small crunch time in the morning is going to be pretty chaotic, and I want to do anything that I can to make it run as smooth as possible. Both my 10-year-old and my 3-year-old do 20 or 30 minutes of breathing treatments in the morning and again at night. I have all of their breathing medications and nebulizers set up on a shelf or a cabinet right next to the couch where they do their treatments, so that I'm not having to run back and forth. Because it used to be that I would have to unpack their vest, set it all up, get the nebulizer set up and do it, and then put it away, trying to keep it, out of reach of the little hands. But now I've just got a cabinet that it's all in, and I can just open the doors, and there we go. Both of the kids have a shelf right next to the couch with their nebulizer and their Hillrom vest on it, because it can kind of take a lot of room. So the Hillrom vest kind of goes under the shelves. When they're not using them, they're just out of the way, and it makes it so I don't have to do that setup every time. Then I actually have a dedicated tray that I use for the nebulizer cups that I just have them all laid out on, so it makes it easy to keep them both separated for each kid, and also makes it easy to take them to the sanitizer when it's time to do that. So I can sanitize the nebulizers and then lay them out to dry on the tray, and then they just carry the tray back to the shelf and put everything back where it's supposed to go. So that way I'm not having to juggle all these different nebulizers and go back and forth a million times. It just makes things run smoother. Then all of the pills that they have for breakfast are organized in the kitchen cabinet. I actually have a dedicated cabinet for all of the medications. So that way they can just take their enzymes and their vitamins and their Orkambi, and it's all right there where we're doing our meals, so that it's not a big deal to gather everything up and everything all together. Another part of having the mornings go smooth has been preparation the night before. So when I'm doing their treatments before they go to bed, usually while they're doing their treatments, I'll be making their lunches or doing that kind of stuff, getting their clothes ready for the next day. And I'll rinse out their nebulizers once they're done with the treatment, put them in the sanitizer, and then that way when they're all in bed and once I'm going to bed, I can just take them out of the sanitizer and put them back on a tray. It just helps to get into a routine, so that you're not having to think through everything every single night of what do I still have to do to get ready for tomorrow. Once you get in a routine, it kind of runs smoothly. Getting all four of them ready and out the door in the morning can be crazy. So I'll just I'll go kind of through the morning routine of what we do. We'll usually wake up. I'll usually wake up both kids with CF, get them set up with their nebulizers, and then I'll also wake up the kids that don't have CF, because I can have them. I like to have everybody get up at the same time, because it turns into a sort of a family thing. That way we don't have the kids with CF don't kind of think, why am I having to do all of this extra stuff? It turns into a family thing, and it just becomes routine. And we'll do their medications. While they're doing medications, the other two are getting dressed, and then we'll do breakfast all together, and then it's just out the door, and that's it. So that's pretty much it for morning routines. It's just the main thing is just having a routine, basically, and setting things up in a way that's best for you and helps to not have you running back and forth a million times to different places in the house.
Well, thank you so much for that. That was actually some good organizational I might have to put to use. Next, most people find appointment management and dealing with intern issues overwhelming, but staying on top of both are vital in CF care. We know both of you have significant experience in this area, and we'd appreciate hearing what has helped you the most. So first, Jeremy, can you start with your appointments and how you manage them, especially for two kids with CF?
Yeah, so the clinic that we go to uses MyChart, which is an online system for organizing the appointments and medications, and that's helped a lot with the organizational side of things. But it can still be a challenge to remember what questions I have, and especially when I'm managing two kids and a 3-year-old, trying to keep them happy during the appointments. It can be, your brain can kind of go blank and you can forget which questions you have. So at the beginning, I'd have questions to ask, and then we get into the visit and I would forget all of them. But now what's helped me a lot since then is just to keep a kind of running list of questions. So after we're done with one appointment, if I come out thinking I have questions, I'll start writing them down. And then throughout the next couple of months, as I go through different medical routines, or the kids are feeling a certain way, I'll just jot down all of the questions. That way, when we get to the appointment, all I have to do is look at the list of questions that I have and ask the doctor, so that when the respiratory therapist comes in or the doctor comes in, I can just ask those questions and not worry about forgetting them. When my daughter was first diagnosed with CF, getting used to all of the medications and records to keep track of everything was a challenge. My chart wasn't around yet, so we just had a huge folder of all the test results and summaries, but it was a pain to keep things organized, and it was easy to lose things or lose track of them. These days, I keep track of everything in my chart, so that when I get to a week or two before the visit, I just check the visit summary from our last appointment to start getting my thoughts together about the upcoming appointment. And that's also a good way to catch things. If you need to get an x-ray or blood work done that maybe they asked you to get done right before the appointment, you can review it and have it all ready for the doctor when the appointment comes. It's something that really came in handy at our last appointment because we had just moved to a new state and our old clinic hadn't sent over all of the records yet. But it wasn't a problem because I had just reviewed everything and I was able to just verbally communicate with the doctor all of the dosages and medications that we were on, and we were kind of able to pick up where we left off, even though they didn't have the records yet. Another thing that, because there are so many tests and x-rays and things to do, I like to get them done as soon as possible after the appointment's done, unless the doctor has told me to wait. That way they're just done. And for the next 3 months, you're not having to constantly think, oh yeah, we need to get that test or x-ray done. Also, depending on your insurance, if you're getting x-rays done at a different location than your CF clinic, they can usually put the x-rays on a CD or test results on a CD, so you can just take them to your clinic yourself. So if something got lost in translation, you still have the results for the doctor to look at. And lastly, because the clinics are such a big deal to get to, I always schedule both kids at the same time. That way we only have to do it once every few months instead of juggling multiple appointments. And the appointments are pretty long, so I'll pack lots of snacks and water bottles and some toys for the 3-year-old, because sitting there for a long time can be a challenge keeping them entertained. And one more thing at the appointments, when you're waiting for different people to come in, it's helpful to play games and things like that, just to keep them occupied and not just wondering when are we going to leave, because 3 hours is a long time for a 3-year-old to be in an appointment. So,
well, thank you. It's very clear your hands are full, but you've definitely figured out how to manage it to the best of your ability. Next, we have Lynda. What do you do to stay on top of insurance communications, denials, and payment?
I just want to comment on Jeremy's toys and keeping busy in the appointment. Even with a 16-year-old, I still deal with that. So we play keepy-uppy we blow up one of with the gloves and play keepy-uppy the whole time we're there. So we stay busy too and just exercise in the room. But anyway, so insurance management is, that's such a big load. It's a lot to deal with. I think we can break it up into a little bit into 2 parts here real quick. First of all, choosing the right plan, making sure that you have, that's super stressful to choose it, I think. And, and if you're in open enrollment and you're choosing, like, not going through an employer, it's a whole different game, and you have to be knowledgeable what you're choosing is the right thing for you. And then if you do have a commercial plan with your employer and an option to buy in, to have insurance through your employer, it is pretty helpful for some other reasons, but there's also options to maybe buy up to a better plan that could help you have better co-pays, or that might cover more things for, like Jeremy was saying, x-rays and other imaging items, or even surgeries. So I work on as I said earlier, Compass Advisory Board, and I'll do a plug for Compass because they're amazing. Compass is a personalized one-on-one service that provides people with CF and their families a partner in dealing with the challenges related to life with CF, no matter where you are with your CF journey. So this is free service that the CF provides, and you can just get on cff.org and search Compass, and I think it's actually on the front page right now. when you're in doubt, call them. They'll set up a caseworker with you, and they can actually do a side-by-side comparison if you have an option with your employer, and decide which option could be best for you. And they really are fabulous. They do need time to go through it. So don't think that, if you call today, you'll get an answer tomorrow. They need some time to do that. On the other hand, managing insurance. So now you have your plan, right? And some of the things I would recommend are find the member services number in the back of your card and put it in your phone. You'll have to call them at some point for some reason, one way or another. And if it's in your phone, you don't have to look for it, your card. Another thing would be log into the insurance company website and create a login. You can access a lot of information on your insurance website. And for example, if your insurance company has paid their portion of the bill, where you are with your out-of-pocket payments for co-payments, some other information, just, what tests you did last. And there's just lots of information you can find on there. And my chart, like Jeremy was saying, I absolutely love my chart. I can't believe we didn't have it before now. Another option I would say is to create a email that's just for medical related correspondence, so that you can keep it separate than your personal stuff. I like Gmail just so I can use Google Docs, and I save files in there for on the go. So I have it at my fingertips at all times. You could also use Dropbox or some other app that's on your phone to save those files. There might be a safer way. Somebody definitely let us know. Another thing I do is I take a picture of my insurance card, the front and the back, because the front always has your member number, and the back has your group number, and the back will have phone numbers that you might need, or for fax information for your provider, might need that. It's also handy to have those pictures, because now a lot of facilities are doing online check-ins and that process. And so you can just upload it from your phone if you're doing an online check-in on your phone. So another thing is keeping insurance documents. Jeremy touched on it a little bit. Like, there's just so much paperwork we receive. You can keep the physical copy if you like. I am a paperless person. I prefer not to have it if I can. Save the trees and all that. But if we do receive it in paper, I try to scan it or take a picture of it and store it in the file. And I've created subfolders in my Google Docs folder. And another thing I'll do is similar to what Jeremy was saying, is I create the list of medications. I also create the list with the medications. I put how often they take it and the dosage, because sometimes they change dosage or whatever the case may be. And if you have all that list of your medications on hand, every time you go back into the doctor's office, you don't have to go, oh gosh, what is that? How many times does he take it or she take it or whatever? So I put that list in there, and it's just easy to then add in the history. And if there's any changes or they stop something, it's handy to have that. So another folder I'll have is for bills. So the bill name, where it's coming from, say Arnold Palmer Hospital, we're in Orlando. And I'll put Arnold Palmer Hospital due 10.21.22, because you can't put the slashes in the file. And that will alert me that, okay, that's due that date, so I can keep an eye on it, or that I know where it is. And then I'll also add that into my calendar to remind myself to pay the bill. Obviously we pay our co-payments to the doctor's offices, but when you have outpatient services, imaging services, hospital stay, or anything like that, those are the things you should have bills for. Referrals. So I also keep referrals in a file, because I'll ask the doctor's office to send me a copy so that I have it when I go to my specialist appointment. A lot of times even if the office has sent it, they may have not received it or attached it to your file. So it saves you some time being at your specialist appointment and trying to find a referral or get your doctor's office to reply to a phone call. Prior authorizations. We have a lot of those nowadays. So if you know that you need a prior authorization, or if you go to the pharmacy and they say that, or if it's for a specific test, call the care team, call your office, or if they have an email, you can email them and let them know that you need that. It does speed up the process because they usually have an email that multiple people are managing and they have many requests. So if it's something that you need now, or you have a new insurance and you need a new referral, giving them the heads up can really help them search through it and get it to you quickly, or get it to the provider quickly. Denials. We have lots of fun denials in CF. So, you know, sometimes they get sent by mail. Sometimes we find out when we get to the counter in the pharmacy. But, you know, just, I would say file them, make sure you have it, put it in there, and also send an email with the attachment to your care team. They may be able to help. Sometimes the insurance company may have to do a peer-to-peer review, which is the insurance company has a doctor that needs to speak to your doctor to see the reasoning why something needs to be approved. And the care team are happy to help you. So that's a good option. And another thing I would say is don't always take no for an answer. It may be something that they're told to say, no, you're denied, sorry, get on your way, see you later. Ask for a supervisor. Why is it being denied? Finding out sometimes that reason, if it's not on your list or whatever. That way you can tell the care team what you might need, and then call your insurance company and check that it is actually denied and what their reason is. And that way you can tell your care team. Another thing is copay assistance. Ask your care team. Usually they'll tell you that there's copay assistance, but sometimes they may forget, or a program may have changed and they may not have updated information. But the copay assistance are honestly the best things ever. The company usually pays a certain amount. For example, digestive enzymes for my son and the plan I'm on, they're $75 a month. And with the copay assistance, I only pay $20. Sometimes you can get 3 months instead of 1 month. And I would say always put your medications on autofill, because that way you don't have to remember to refill them, and it helps save time or lack of running out. So sometimes there's some light paperwork with that. Sometimes the care team can actually put in the application or put in the paperwork for you if you sign it at the clinic. Usually they never take that long. And not too cumbersome at all. But I do save my copay assistance applications or whatever, and save them with the expire date on them. So, and also put in my calendar to remind myself to call them back and renew it each year. And I'd say one more thing here for future and transitioning for kids that are, younger kids and transitioning into young adults, and that process of becoming an adult down the road. Call your pharmacies and insurance in their presence. You know, sometimes I'll be driving him to school and I'll make my phone calls or whatever, or if we're in car line or whatever the case may be, so he can hear our conversation to learn how to advocate for himself, because like I advocate for him. So just getting them to learn the language and how to speak with the insurance company and pharmacies. But that's it for insurance, that all I can think of. So Brittany, back to you.
Wow. Well, we know there's a lot to keep in track. Thank you for sharing tips with us. So one thing that comes up with getting CF diagnosis is how to travel with the CF. So traveling when you or someone you love have CF can be challenging, but our panelists have gotten their systems down and they're happy to share what they've learned with you. So first, Jeremy, let us know how you keep track of packing and organizing everything when you travel with your kids on the road.
Yeah, so first, just to touch on one of the things that Lynda said, with insurance denials, I would say 90 or more % of the time that I've had a denial, if I just push them on it or ask more questions or send a letter, it's reversed and been approved. So that's a big thing. And then for copay assistance, all of the different manufacturers, most of them have them. And also there's different grants out there that you can get to help with copayments for medications. I think HealthWell is one of them, and then there's a few more other than that too. For traveling, one of my goals being a parent of kids with CF is trying to make sure that CF doesn't limit what we do as a family. It can add some challenges to things like going on road trips, but I don't want that to limit anything that we've done. So I've come up with a few systems that we can use to make traveling as easy as possible. There's a lot of different medications and different medical equipment that goes into the CF treatments. So I just have a running list of everything that we use every day, so that when it comes to packing for a trip, I just run down the list and put it all together. At first, I kind of struggled with things like, how am I going to keep the Pulmozyme cold? Or other medications that need to stay cold, how am I going to handle that? But if you're using like a specialty pharmacy or even a normal pharmacy, those medications get shipped in a cooler with ice packs. So I just save a couple of those coolers and use them when it's time to go on a road trip. I remember there was one time I went to even just a Walgreens and asked them, hey, do you have a cooler that medication comes in so that I can use it? And they just gave it to me, and I was able to put the Pulmozyme in that. And those keep the medications cold for a long time because they're used for shipping them. So you don't have to really worry about it when you're going between gas stations on a road trip and trying to keep all the kids happy. I usually have a suitcase that's dedicated to all the medical supplies so that I can keep it all in one place, so that when I'm going down that list, I'm just putting it all in one suitcase. And then I'll have a separate bag that I kind of keep at the front of the car, so that that's full of the things that we're going to use every day, like the enzymes and Orkambi and those types of things. For road tripping, I found what works best for me with the younger kids is just to get up early and get on the road as soon as possible. Usually we have their breathing treatments in the mornings. But what I did was I got a power inverter for the car, so that when we get the first couple hours out of the way, we'll stop and eat breakfast, and then we'll just plug in their equipment into the car, and they'll do the treatments in the car. And it's really helpful to get some disposable nebulizers for that, so that you're not having to worry about sanitizing things over and over again, or keeping everything clean while you're in a car, because that can be pretty difficult. There's also some portable nebulizer compressors that you can get, like the Perry Trek, and the Afflovest, I think, is one that doesn't require being plugged in, that makes things easier. And for road trips, I'll normally bring like a month's long supply of all of the medications, even if we're only going for a week or so, because on road trips, things can get misplaced. It can be hard to get medications filled at pharmacies that aren't your home pharmacy. And so doing all of those things and having more than you need kind of just gives you peace of mind to not have to worry about it. So the biggest thing for me is just having that list, having a suitcase that I can pack that has everything in one place, and then figuring out a way to do the treatments on the road has been helpful. And I think that's about it for car rides.
Awesome.
Well, thank you a lot for breaking that down for us. So next, as a seasoned international traveler, Lynda, we'd love to hear what else you would like to add when you're traveling by plane.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Ireland, and moved here when I was 18. So we travel back and forth a lot. And my husband's sister lives in Germany. So we just traveled to Germany and had a lot of fun traveling. We had flights canceled and everything. It was a mess. Anyway, so number one, tell your care team you're traveling. Let them know where you're going and for how long. Check with the pharmacy to see if you can get your medication early, explain vacation, and your care team can also help you with that. Like if you need extra, especially if you're going internationally, you're going to possibly be longer than, a couple of weeks. And sometimes if our medications are monthly, you may need an extra month to travel with. Number one thing, plan extra time to go through security. This is a big deal. I always give us an extra hour. It's most likely that they will need to check all your carry-on bags because of the medication and the equipment. They will usually take everything out like you would a laptop or a gaming device. So just prepare for that. They'll take it out and it definitely helps to get there in time. Bringing medical equipment to Europe. This is a biggie. If you are, which most of us would, you need to have the correct electrical converter because the electric supply, the current is different, stronger there. It's a step down there. So contact the company that made the device. They may be able to send you a European plug. Just note that there are different plugs for different countries. So for England and the UK, or Ireland and the UK, there's one type of plug. And if you go to Germany, there's a different type of plug. So just note to the company where you're going. I have had Hillrom send me an actual straight on plug for the device for the vest. So that was super helpful. I didn't have to get a converter, which was awesome. Keep all your medications in clear Ziploc bags. One, you want to keep them together, but when they go through security, they pull everything out. It gets messy. I'm also germaphobe. Many of us are. So I don't want them touching all the bottles and stuff like that. So I will try to keep them all together. And if you travel through Europe, a lot of them want you to put any of the loose items in a clear plastic bag anyway. And the other thing is they can see the label through with your prescription through the bag. Keep all your labels on your medications and keep them in the original packaging for traveling. It helps with proof that medication's for your child. Also, get a letter from your care team with the diagnosis and the list of medications you'll be traveling with and how long you're traveling. It has really helped me when I brought my child's feeding equipment because he had a feeding tube, and they were not willing to let me through with his feeding formula. They wanted me to open all of it, and I was able to ask for the supervisor and have them not make that happen. And I get through, and because it was liquid, also there were 12-ounce cans of liquid, and so that was a big issue. And there, just to note, the liquid requirements are different when it comes to medication when you're traveling for onboard items. Never, ever, never, never, never check your bag of medications or any medical equipment. You have the right to carry them on board, and so that they never get lost. You need them. They need to stay with you, and don't let anybody tell you differently. I've had many people tell me, "I'm sorry, it has to be checked. It's a different size, whatever the case may be." You need to stay within the requirements of the size, but you can have as many bags as you need for your medical equipment and medications. Bring extra everything. It'll be difficult to get anything, especially medication-wise, while you're abroad. Extra medication, extra feeding tube or button replacement, nebulizer tubing. Just bring it. It's easier to have it than not have it. Another item, this is very specific to your care team and how comfortable they are with this, but I always bring oral antibiotics with me. And you would obviously need to have a conversation with your care team about this. Some are more comfortable than others. When we travel, I would email them with the symptoms, the length of the symptoms, fever, and I would wait for them to email me back, especially when you're overseas, you can't call, before I would start that. But it has reduced us going to the ER in a different country, which could be very scary. So that's just something to maybe bring up with your care team if you're traveling abroad. Get also the closest CF care center, find out where that is. So when we were in Germany, the closest one was Berlin. When I was in Ireland, the closest one was in Dublin. So just knowing where they are and having the contact information ahead of time was really helpful. Getting on the plane. Jeremy, I don't know how you do it if you've gotten on a plane with all your kids, but it's tough enough just to load on, but you can ask to get on early, and especially if you have your letter, and just let them know it's for a medical reason. I also like to get on early for another reason. I will go and clean all the seats down, the buttons, the buckles, the windows, the window shades, the air controllers, everything. And because there's 4 of us, a lot of times we have 2 seats, I'll clean both seats before anybody else in my family gets on the flight, and they'll get on later on. And I'll also take on the medical bags with me so that they don't have to try and trade through with all of those things. And I am not sure why this happens. But every time I travel with Miralax on my carry-on bag, it has to be checked for exposure to explosives. I have no idea. It's no joke. I'm serious. They do it every time. So now I pack it in my checked-in bag because at least that's the least likely, or that's an easy one to find if you're in another country. You can get something that can relieve constipation. But the one thing I'll say is if you're traveling abroad and you're going somewhere fun and you're getting on a plane, the most important thing is to have fun. Your preparation will be before. Have a great time and just enjoy yourself. So bringing back to you.
Thank you for that. All right. So especially as caregivers out there, it's important and really hard to schedule time for your own personal care, but it is just as important to build time for yourself. Needs. So we don't want to forget to mention that. So Lynda, I would like to discuss how you schedule your time to make sure that you have your personal care in place.
Yeah, I didn't do a very good job of this when my kids were younger. I always did everything first, but my son was really ill in the early years, so until he was on Kalydeco later on. So honestly, it was just a matter of surviving. But later on, I made it a priority. I started running. That really helps with, just my mental health and getting away from the house and getting away from everything else. But also monthly girls' nights with my friends, Bible study or book club, date nights, or just even doing an activity that you love. And another one is we created a CF parent night out, obviously because the kids can't get together, once a quarter. I've also done some virtual parent nights within the CF community. But whatever, just schedule it. And then the other thing I will say is I have my friends and my family hold me accountable to that and to make sure that I actually take the time. So, that helps. And they're usually like, we're not taking no for an answer. If it's not Tuesday, then we're going Thursday, something like that. So.
Absolutely. So as a single parent, Jeremy, how do you keep yourself organized on track, taking care of
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge sometimes to find times to rest and recuperate. It's always tempting to just keep pushing through and keep going because there's so much stuff to do. But I've learned that it's pretty important to stop for breaks and recharge because otherwise you burn out. And if you're not taking care of yourself, how can you take care of the kids? There's kind of two things that are pretty helpful for me. One is that at least a couple times a week, once the kids are in bed, I just force myself to stop. So sometimes you just need to leave the dishes for the morning and rest, and do something that you like to do. Finding things that I enjoy that I can do once the kids are in bed, like music or other things like that has been really helpful. The other thing to keep in mind is that people don't know what you're dealing with CF unless you tell them. So it was important for me to learn to communicate what's actually involved in dealing with CF to people so that they know what's going on. And then when they offer to help, you just take them up on it. They're offering because they want to help, and learning to trust that other people can actually learn how to help the kids, and other people can learn how to do the medications, and the kids are going to be just fine if somebody else does it for a day or for an evening. It's been helpful for me to realize that to be able to re-energize and recuperate. And I just have a instruction list that I typed out that anybody can read to remember how to do the medication after I've explained it, and it's made it pretty easy and not too much of a challenge. Sometimes people can be a little bit not taken back by it, but just, I guess, overwhelmed by how much you have to do with the medications. But after they do it once, that's usually not a problem. So.
Well, those are great ideas. I myself have a pretty big issue relinquishing control, including to my own husband. So we actually set aside time to where he takes over the boys, and I literally go on the other side of the house and lock my room for an hour and do whatever I want for one solid hour. But I also have a virtual therapist when things get really hard and I can't cope on my own. My social worker actually set me up. My kids' social worker set me up with that. So that has helped me a lot. So I guess with that, we're going to take some questions from the audience. So if you haven't already, you can put questions in the Q&A and we'll get to as many as we can. I believe we already have a couple. Uh-oh, hold on. Okay, this one is for Lynda. Have you ever had trouble with a teacher not being supportive of the 504?
Great question. Yes. I've even had a 504 coordinator question if the accommodations were really needed. And with the teachers as well, you have every right to go back and ask for another meeting specifically with that teacher. You know, if you get into middle school and high school, you have more than one teacher. But if it's a specific one, absolutely. I have also had my child moved out of the classroom because they were not willing to really work with us. But it's a legal document. So absolutely go back to the 504 coordinator. That second time going back, I would say bring in assistant principal. I've done that as well. And also make your social worker come with you, or have your social worker on call. They will accept a social worker on speakerphone for the meeting, and arm yourself with everything that is the rights for your child. Absolutely. Thank you for that question.
Okay, so our next question for Jeremy. How do you optimize time to enjoy your trips when you travel?
I think, again, the big thing is just routine. So we've kind of set up our routine so that we do all of the treatments first thing when we wake up. We get up out of bed, start the medications. And so while they're doing their breathing treatments, I'm making breakfast. And as soon as they're done, breakfast is ready. And we either can eat on the road if you're going to do something fun, or you can eat together. And then I save the second treatment for at nighttime, right before the kids go to bed, because it's just kind of turned into a nighttime routine for us. So we really have, when the kids are not sick, we really have most of the day for just doing anything that we want. And it's really only that treatment time in the morning and at night that you're having to worry about. And once if you have all the medications in one place, you're not having to juggle where all the medications are. And since you brought them on supply with you, you're not worrying about where am I going to fill this medication and how much do I have left, things like that. So really just planning that ahead and keeping, sticking to your routine, even if you're tired in the morning, it keeps the free time open for doing fun things. So.
If you could go back and tell yourself something at the beginning of this journey, what would it be? So I think all of us can add in on this one. Lynda, you want to go first?
Breathe. Just breathe. Sometimes you just need to step back and take a minute. And learn how to speak up without being rude or aggressive. You know, not rude, you're just in panic mode sometimes. And just make sure that you communicate clearly without frustration. You have every right to communicate what you need to communicate, but breathe and try to get through it without getting agitated and upset. And honestly, the other thing is you're doing the best job you can do. All of us are, and we can't, try not to take it so personal when things go wrong. The first 3-4 years of my son's life, we spent in and out of hospital like 6 to 7 pneumonias a year, feeding tubes, surgery after surgery, sinus stuff. Just know that you're doing the best job that you can do. You're doing all that you can. And unfortunately, CF is, just uncontrollable at times, and giving up control is tough for us, as we've learned. But so yeah, that's what I would probably say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you were mentioning speaking up. I think for me, I don't like to make waves, and I don't like to make people upset. So it's hard for me to speak up sometimes. But I've learned that especially the doctors and the nurses and your care team, they're there to help, and that's their job. And so just asking the questions if you have them, and not worrying about it if somebody maybe gets a little bit annoyed, because if you're being kind and respectful, it's not your problem. And you need to get your questions answered so that you can understand what you need to do as a parent. And then the other thing is that it's just like, it's really overwhelming when you first find out, oh, your kid has this genetic disease, but it's going to be okay. And there's tons of research that goes into CF, and the CF Foundation has done a lot of work and made huge progress in treatments. And so it's not it's concerning, but take a deep breath and realize that it's going to be okay. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna stick with Lynda on the breathing part, and using in a trainer. I also very non-confrontational. But with my older son, I didn't voice my concerns loud enough. So once we transitioned to a new doctor, when our doctor retired, I had to learn how to use my voice and my power as his mother. So I'm just going to say to stand behind your child until they can advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
But to also make sure that you're putting into yourself what you're giving to others, because it is very, very overwhelming.
I just want to, yeah, it really is. One other thing, somebody had given to me a long time ago, especially for a new diagnosis, if you're a parent on here that's pretty new to CF, read the poem Welcome to Holland. If you haven't read it, it's great. It's just a good different shift of your mindset on how to deal with this new world, and reach out to also CF Peer Connect. I forgot about that, peer-to-peer. So you can reach out to another parent through the CF Foundation and get connected and just have another voice, because there's nothing like speaking to another CF parent and saying, oh my gosh, we just got diagnosed with, Pseudomonas. And now we have to deal with this, because even though your family are close, they don't always know what it feels like, So that's my only thing. So welcome to Holland, and reach out to a CF parent.
I recited the Serenity Prayer so much that my son, when he was 3, he could say the whole thing verbatim. So.
Love it.
All right. Well, it looks like we're just about out of time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap everything up. Thank you all for your attention and your engagement. That concludes day 1 of CF FamilyCon. You'll be able to watch the recording of this panel on the video resource room soon. We look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, October 22nd, for day 2. Before we go, we're going to please take some time filling out the satisfaction question under the poll tab on the right-hand side of your screen. We would love to know how you felt about today's conversation. The second day is going to start off with social opportunities, including one-on-one networking, where you can get matched randomly with another attendee for 5-minute video conversations. You'll be able to access this in the networking tab. The day will also start with line representatives and a number of different expo booths in the expo tab, where you can learn about different CF Foundation programs that are available to help support you and your loved ones with CF. Additionally, you will have the option of joining a storytelling hour, where individuals with all different connections to CF will share their stories of togetherness, or joining an adult with CF. Ask Me Anything panel, where you can get your burning questions answered directly by adults with CF. So we will see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Bye. Thank you for being here.